5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 5, 7, dip. 1, 3, 5, 7, clean. 1. Great. 1, 3, 5, 7, 1.
How's the fire looking?
Good. More steps. Yeah.
1, 3, 5, 7.
Okay.
1, 3.
You ready?
5, 7.
Just a sec.
4, 5, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 5, 7. 1, 2, 3.
Hi everyone, welcome to this new episode of Carolyn Talks. I'm your host, Carolyn, film critic and journalist, and this is one of my special episodes, interviews for the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival. That is always such a mouthful to say. And today I'm joined by filmmaker D.W. Waterson to talk about Backspot, which I'm very interested in. It is a cheerleading film that is not just about cheerleading. I think it's about the anxiety and the pressures that young women face in competitive sports, because cheerleading, professional cheerleading, is a competitive sport, and it talks about the pressures that comes with that, and I think also the relationships between mothers and daughters in a very subtle way. So I can't wait to talk to DW about that. So thank you so much for joining me, DW.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Yay! So first, I always like to I sometimes like to have my filmmakers just like say a bit about themselves and what got them into filmmaking. So for what inspired you to become a filmmaker? Because I went through your IMDb and I saw you've done some music videos, you've done some TV shows, and this is your first feature film?
Yes, this is my debut feature film as a director. Yeah, I created the web series That's My DJ, so that was kind of like, you know, me kind of pulling inspiration from my life as a DJ in the Toronto underground scene, and really started to pulling it into kind of like the short form kind of web series bits. But I don't know, I feel like what got me into filmmaking was being a teenager and going to Blockbuster and renting lots of movies.
Yes.
You know, Friday nights were lit. You gotta get something from the indie section and something from the Blockbuster section.
That was my life. We didn't have Blockbuster in the Caribbean. We had for Barbados was a local chain called Chubby's.
Nice.
And that was it. That was my people always ask me how I got into film and loving film, but it was because a lot of it had to do with my brother. He would take my twin sister and I to the video store on Friday evenings, and it would be, you could get us rent 4 get 1 free. So it would be the 3 of us, and he would tell each of us, you get 2 tapes, girls, and he select his own. So we'd always like pick different genres. A lot of it for us was like Asian cinema, like Hong Kong actions and sci-fi and that kind of stuff. So like we have that like in common. Going to the video store on Friday, so our weekend was packed.
It was packed, and it's so fun, and it's so like visually stimulating, and I like that it was like what, buy 4 get 1 free.
Yeah.
So you're like negotiating. You're like, I really want this.
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Those were the days of going to the video store and like picking on the shelf. You have the paper, and it looked like the printer was running out of ink.
Yes.
Before they printed it. So you had all of that to inspire you, and so this is your first feature film, and it is about competitive cheerleading. So tell me about making your first feature film about this sport, because I think it's one that is often overlooked, because there's so many sports films about basketball, football, and all these films, but nothing really about especially female-led and female-dominated competitive sports. So why cheerleading?
I mean, they're throwing bodies in the air. I mean, name me another sport who's doing quite the same thing. And yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions with cheerleading. You see sparkles and bows, and yeah, I think that's kind of what we take away from it. It's also, it feels like also it's just through the male gaze, like, oh, this can be accepted into the sports world, but only through this kind of male gaze. And I really wanted to take a different approach and see the toll it takes on their bodies, and the bruises and the concussions and you know, kind of the broken arms and the pressure that they're in to perform. It's unlike many other sports in the sense that you're practicing this one routine over and over and over and over again, and then you kind of come out and you put on your uniform, which is kind of like being a superhero, and you have 2.5 minutes, and you all have to nail it as a team. And then there's like this adrenaline rush, and there's electronic music pounding everywhere. It's just that in and of itself, going to cheer comps and watching these teams compete I feel like it was very almost anxiety inducing. So I knew that these worlds with the story I wanted to tell about mental health and how it can affect, yes, sport affects our physical body, but it also affects our mental health, and especially as young people, you know, they're coming into the world for the first time, experiencing emotions for the first time, everything's very overwhelming, and how that takes form in different ways for people.
Right. No, it's true, and like what you're saying is everything that I thought about, but then I also thought about for cheerleading in particular, because there's a scene that talks about it where not only are they athletes and they do like all of this acrobatics and these gymnastic stunts, and they're incredibly athletic, but they all have to do it while keeping a smile on their face and while looking funny. Because like in Olympic gymnastics, like they do all the same tumbling and the passes and all this, but they're fine looking sweaty. They're fine looking, like they're like really into it, like they're tough and they're like going through it, even for the female gymnasts. But for cheerleading, they're expected to do all of that, but keeping a smile on their face, make sure their makeup is done and their hair stays in place, you know? And it's kind of the same thing for ballet, like professional ballerinas in particular. They have, from a distance, the audience sees them and they're like pretty in their point shoes and their tutus and all these things, but up close, they're sweating, they're in like pain, agony.
And their feet.
And their feet are damaged. And you show that in the film a lot, because I am the lead character, right? Played by Devery Jacobs, who's amazing. I saw her first film last year, the one directed by BT90.
Yep.
And forgive me for not remembering the name.
This Place.
This Place, yes. Thank you. And she was, I think, it's such an amazing thing to see her go from one character in that film just last year to one that is very anxious and intense, and she's very gung-ho, but we get to see the vulnerable moments where like we see her feet bruised, you know, we see the skin on her legs and her toes is peeling off. And I love that you show that emotional vulnerability, but also the physical vulnerability of these young bodies that are going through this extremely dangerous sport.
Yeah, I mean, Devery Jacobs is an incredible actor. I remember seeing Ramshran Ghouls, where she was the lead of, and that premiered 10 years ago at TIFF this year, directed by Jeff Barnaby. And what a brilliant introduction to her, and since she's done Reservation Dogs and so much more, but to really kind of see her work. And we see kind of all layers that she brings to Riley. We see the silliness, we see the competition, we see the anxiety, we see so much, and she really brought so much nuance and you know, such a professional to set, and to the point where her performance elevated everybody else's around her, and that's, you know, just why she's so great. Right, and you mentioned the key word there, I think that centers this whole film, is anxiety. This, the thought occurred to me is another name for this film, apart from Backspot, is pressure. Yes. She's under so much pressure, and I think the pressure comes not only from the, just the pressure, because as a Backspot, her position is literally to be the foundation for the girls, because she's the one that's in charge of not only holding them up, but she has to keep her eye on the physical bodies and make sure if one is tilting to adjust, and she has to call out the calls. So that puts enormous pressure on her. So the film really does show us how, for these young athletes in the Backspot position, how much pressure they're under. So talk about working with Devery and just like working through the, and I think also as the lead actress, she herself is literally carrying the film. So she has, I think there's that kind of like parallel between carrying the film as the lead actress, as the lead performer, but then playing a character whose position is essentially the same as being like the leader of this cheer squad. Absolutely. I mean, Devery Jacobs is also a producer on the film, and she's been with us since kind of day one. And so myself and Devery and our amazing writer Joanne Sarrazin, we would very much collaborate together, and pulling, yes, a lot from my life primarily, but also so much from Devery's life. She was a competitive gymnast. She was a provincial champion. And so like the sleepover scene, that was very much pulled from her experiences of going and having sleepover scenes, and, you know, eating too much candy and running around and having these like really bonding moments with her teammates. But yeah, just bringing, so we wanted to make sure Riley was layered. We were really interested in exploring the relationships between Riley and her mom. Right. And I think in a lot of ways, you know, she's her mom's Backspot. Yes. You know, she's there for her mom in a way that her mom needs, but the mom's not really there for her, which is sad. But that's the case in many relationships with parents. Sometimes the parent is actually the kid. Right. And the parents are leaning on them emotionally to kind of like help them through the world. So I really wanted to kind of explore that and then her relationship with her girlfriend, and showing a positive queer relationship, and showing the youth and the silliness and the fun part about being young and in love, and then all the way to her relationship with this new figure, Coach Eileen, played by Evan Rachel Wood.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is, like, you just listed off all female characters, and I noticed that I was thinking about that in the bus on my way here. Is like the film is almost all female, and the only male character in the film is the assistant coach to Eileen, which is Evan Rachel Wood's character's assistant coach. And I think that's important because, again, it's a sports film. I see this as a sports film.
Absolutely.
And it's one centered around a female sport, but it's also centered around female characters, you know? And I think that's so important because, like, female relationships are so complex.
Yes.
And so complicated. And we understand each other so much, but then in understanding so much about each other, that allows us to hurt each other extremely, in an extremely deep way. We know exactly where to pick at each other. Like, I have a twin sister, and like some of our worst fights, like, we fight often, and people like, oh, you fight. Yeah, but no, but like girls fight.
Yes.
Like, we get vicious. I went to an all-girls secondary school, and like the atmosphere, like, we all get like our periods at the same time, which, like, let me tell you, when you sync up with a classroom of 32 girls,
wow,
chaos.
Yes.
But the film shows you, like, these girls have all of this camaraderie, but like when one starts to feel like she's being attacked, she goes on the attack quick, and she says what needs to be said. And it happens in this, you mentioned the sleepover scene. I think that sleepover scene says so much, not only about this dynamic between these girls, but the competitive sport of cheerleading, but also just like female dynamics in general. Because you mentioned Amanda. I love Amanda. I think she's such an important character because she kind of like shows like a side of the competition and female dynamics where she's very proactive in like looking after herself. Like, she pulls out of the team because she's like, I'm not going to risk my mental and physical health for this sport. And I think it's important to show that kind of like these young women having advocacy for themselves, having personal advocacy, and say, you know what, I'm not going to be peer pressured. Even by my girlfriend, I'm not going to even let her talk me out of this, because she's like, I have to protect myself. And for the film, we mentioned like the anxiety and the pressure, and I think Amanda kind of like is speaking to like Riley, but also Riley's mom and Eileen, because she's telling them, this is how you guys need to pull back from this situation. Like, Eileen is the coach, and she's so intense, you know, she wants perfection. But I think after she sees Amanda pull back, she realizes, you know what, my way of doing things might not be working. And Riley doesn't understand at first, but then she realizes Amanda has a point. And then she does it for her mom. Because she used to tell her mom all the time, you're not stupid, you're not stupid. But she didn't understand where her mom was coming from, that her mom herself has anxiety. And then she realizes, wait, my mom has anxiety the same way that I do. And she takes the cues from Amanda on how to like address her mom and to be more compassionate and understanding. So talk about those dynamics, because I just love talking about female relationships and different relationships between young people, because I love us. You know, like, we are complex. We are what's the word? We contain multitudes.
Yes, oh, perfect. I like from the film.
Yes, we contain. That's something I say all the time.
Oh, amazing!
I am complex and full of multitudes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Amanda has like a full perspective on things. She's not just cheer. She's not just, you know, kind of has that tunnel vision. There's family and school, and she has hopes and dreams, and she sees beyond cheer. She has a part-time job, like, you know, she's making money. She wants to go spin at the mall or something. And I think, in what I've kind of seen from the cheer world, it's very easy to get tunnel vision, and it's cheer. And it demands so much of you. You know, it's 8-hour practices, like, multiple times a week.
Are they paid for that, by the way, once they become professionals? I was wondering that. Like, that's a job.
I don't think so. I think they're paying. They're paying to be in that program. So, you know, it's like they're putting their bodies through so much, and you don't have time to think about anything else. And Riley's stuck in that, and there's such a love for cheer, and I also have that love for cheer, but just because you love something, it doesn't mean other things around you don't exist.
Or that is good for you.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and that's ultimately Riley's journey, is her kind of balancing and trying to figure out, you know, who am I, and what type of queer person I am, and you can't just kind of look at an adult and be like, they're amazing, they're cool, I'm going to be exactly like them. You know, everybody has flaws, and I think, you know, one of my favorite scenes in the film is when she's with kind of Coach Devin, and he kind of underlines, like, Eileen, she's just a person. Yes. And we're all just people. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses and our flaws, and we've all been traumatized. You know, we've all been through things in our life, and, you know, hopefully the people you surround yourself with are people who recognize that and heal from that and don't dump it on to other people. But a lot of people do. You know, we go through hard times, and instead of dealing with it ourselves and healing, we're kind of dumping on other people, and we can see that with generations. And I really wanted to explore that dynamic with Riley and Coach Eileen, two queer people, different generations, and we can see Eileen maybe hasn't healed from the struggle of being queer, and tries to, like, warn Riley, you have to be strong, you have to be all these things, and that's her way of trying to protect, but it actually ends up kind of coming out as, you know, traumatizing Riley.
Yeah, kind of putting all of this pressure on her. Okay, and so I want to talk now. In talking about the female dynamics, I think it's important to talk about the mothers, because I think while we don't get many scenes with the mothers, like a lot of the mothers, these two women, how they treat their daughters informs a lot of the behaviors that we see. Like for Riley, as I mentioned, she has severe anxiety, and it comes out in almost close to self-mutilation, where she plucks out her eyebrows.
Yeah, trichotillomania, which is like self-soothing. Yeah. And yeah. And
I'm like, first thing first, plucking eyebrows hurts. So when she was just doing it, and she's so, like, it's almost such a ingrained behavior in her that she doesn't even recognize the pain anymore. But it's like a form of self-soothing, especially, and like I realized she does it with the lighting too, with the icy blue and icy purple lighting. Like that's kind of like her, where she's almost like in a fugue state, where she's just like checking out of reality. And I think a lot of that comes from her mom, because she realized she wants to help her mom, but she doesn't know how to. And Amanda's mom, like I love the production design for their homes, because it like their emotions and their family states is very informed by the production design of the houses.
We wanted to have one very cool and very empty, and then one very warm and like lots of things going on.
Yeah, because like I'm from the Caribbean, so like we don't wear our shoes on the inside. We don't wear our shoes inside too. So like when they go into Amanda's house, like the shoes are just laid there, and like they take them off, and but the setting is very warm. It's browns. It's like earth tones. And when you go into Riley's home, they take off their shoes too, but it's not for the same purpose. I see it as they're taking off their shoes because her mom wants to keep the house very pristine and very clean. And it has nothing really to do with tradition, with like a familial tradition of removing your shoes. It's more about, I want my house to look very clean, very pristine. I want to keep it in order. And I think a lot of that has to do with the dads. Like we don't ever see the dads in this film. They're just like noises in the background. But I get the sense the reason her mom is so obsessed with perfection and doing everything right is because of the dad. Like the dad puts so much pressure on them. And like, he's an absent figure, but his presence is still felt in the film, and it's still felt in the home. So I talk about the dynamics of the moms and like how these two women relate to their daughters and how that informs the film that we see.
Yeah, we really wanted to kind of take two perspectives on each of their moms, making sure they were different. Like I said, like one household very cold and not a lot of things, and things are in place, and obviously exploring, you know, how OCD, you know, is passed down to the kids, and it takes shapes in different ways. And for her mother, it's very clear she is cleaning and has OCD herself, and struggles with, you know, that effect on her, and you know, having this pressure from the father who seems disconnected and focused on himself. And we really wanted to kind of explore that dynamic with Riley and her mom. And then subsequently, oh my goodness, subsequently, it's a Monday after TIFF, everybody. And then in Amanda's house, you know, there's a warmth and there's love, but Amanda's still very embarrassed by her mother. And I loved what Kudakwashe and Elunike did there, and there was so much playfulness. But I mean, all parents are kind of embarrassing, and Riley loves it being there. But Amanda, you know, not so much. She wants her own space. And all of those things. But yeah, just to show that juxtaposition of households and parenting styles, and how that ultimately affects the kids, and then how they kind of all interact.
Right, and we're gonna wrap up now. So there's a question I want to ask, but I'm wondering if it might be a spoiler. But I want to ask you, so where do you see Riley going? Because I was wondering, like professional cheerleading is such a big, huge competition, but it's not a career. So I was trying to figure out, where would Riley go to next, because I think I saw at first at the beginning of the film, like, actually cheerleading was actually a coping mechanism for her. That was a way for her to get her anxiety out, because she wants control the same as her mom. She wants to control the position as the backspot. She has control on the mat. But at the end, I'm seeing, like, she's now beginning to finally enjoy cheerleading. I don't think she enjoyed it before. She just did it as a coping mechanism. But now she's finally able to relax and enjoy it. And I think that's where Devery's acting really comes through, because her posture is completely different at the end of the film. Like, she's more relaxed. Her face, the smiles comes more easily to Riley's face. So tell me, what would you have seen Riley going on to do next?
I mean, I think Riley keeps cheering. I think she would probably go to college for cheer, and, you know, kind of pursue it as long as she can. And, you know, what happens after that, I'm not too sure. You know, maybe she still stays involved from, like, a coaching perspective, but I think, you know, she would probably be drawn to maybe the arts or film. I don't know. Riley's very much based off of myself, so I'm like, becomes a filmmaker. But yeah, and same for Amanda. We always kind of talked about where Amanda was going. We're like, she's gonna be a lawyer. Like, she's got them book smarts. She's so on top of things, and so I could kind of see them kind of going to college together, and then who knows after that.
Yeah, the world is their oyster, as you say. But now for you, since the film is so much inspired by your own life and your own experiences, what do you see yourself doing next as a filmmaker? And this is, like, you don't have to give me any hard and fast facts. You're active, and that we just gotta focus on it. But, like, what do you see yourself just, like, envisioning, like, your path as a filmmaker from here?
Yeah, I mean, already working on my second feature. I have a couple television kind of pitches and scripts in development that I'm ready to kind of get out there. And Devery Jacobs and I are actually writing a graphic novel together that's being released by 10 Speed Press that comes out in 2025. So lots of projects on the go, but honestly, I'm just so happy to be here. I'm happy to have my feature film out and to be able to just meet other creatives and filmmakers, and I'm just hungry and ready for what's next, and I'm ready to keep creating.
And so for one last question, and the thought literally just occurred to me. As a director, as I mentioned before, you kind of like the backspot for for the film. Do you kind of see filmmaking as a way to, like, release whatever pressure you have? Like you have all of these ideas for stories in your head. You're just like, I can finally go and I can release the pressure I have for this story that's, like, kind of like sitting on my head and getting it out.
Yeah, I mean, filmmaking is kind of like being an athlete. You know, being on set and these long hours, and you really have to kind of take care of yourself and your mental health and your joints and all of those things. And yeah, we'll kind of see what happens next.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, DW, for talking with me. This was a great conversation. Yeah, congratulations on the film, and, like, much success on all of these projects you have. You're doing a lot.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, bye.